What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Tonight's live production is premier sponsored by Prairie Sky Recovery Center. Prairie Sky Recovery Center offers intensive inpatient addictions treatment and supports medically assisted treatment strategies in Leipzig, Saskatchewan. To learn more about our sponsors, keep up on all upcoming live streams, shop our store, and find our audios and more, visit www.hardknockstalks.com. Tonight's guest, person in recovery, Cara Tatarelli, is here to talk about her journey through addiction, homelessness, street life, and now recovery, and we are going to meet her right after this. I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Okay, let's bring in Cara. Hi, Cara.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling tonight?
Good, really good, excited.
Yeah. I like to think that the countdown like settles people down and like gets them ready for the show, but like at the same time, I don't know, like that time counting down, I think maybe it might make it worse.
Yeah, I don't know, it kind of did both. Made me a little nervous, more nervous, also kind of gave me time to prepare.
Is there anything you'd like to say before we jump in tonight?
Um, just I'm really happy and excited to do this, and I've never been able to really share my story like this in this manner before. So this is new and exciting, and my goal and my hope is that it can help. If it helps at least one person, then that would be amazing.
Awesome. Let's dive in. So tell us, how did this all get started? What was it like growing up?
Well, growing up, it was it was odd. I My mom and my stepdad are and still are the most amazing supportive people in my life. My dad and my stepmom growing up were total opposite, and my dad struggled really bad with alcoholism and drug addiction, and my parents got divorced when I was 3, so I went back and forth between my mom and dad's house up until I graduated from high school. And that was it was hard because one week it would be very stable and loving, and then the next week it was just chaos, drugs, alcohol.
Mhm.
So it was confusing, and I gravitated more to the chaos. I kind of felt more comfortable with that.
Mhm.
And
So
you know, yeah,
you went to a Catholic school, correct?
yes, I did.
Yeah.
I went to a very Catholic school. We had to go to church 7 days a week.
Oh boy.
uh, every single one of my teachers was a nun or a priest.
Hmm.
um, So I was the only kid in the entire school, and it was a small school.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the only kid. My brother and I were the only ones there that had parents that were divorced. Yeah, so it was very isolating. A lot of the parents didn't want me hanging out with their kids. It was yeah, so
Like,
it
were
was
they
it.
obvious about it? Like, were they like, oh no, stay away from her, like dragging their kids away from you, or?
No, they weren't super obvious about it, but I wouldn't be invited.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always not be invited to the birthday parties,
Uh-huh.
and stuff like that. Like now that
Yeah.
I'm older, looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
um, so that was hard.
Mm-hmm. How old were you the first
Um,
time you got loaded?
I was 13, and that started because, well, there was a number of reasons that led to it, but the summer before I started using, I went to a summer camp and I was molested by an older man there, and it was a really violent situation, and
Mm-hmm.
it messed me up bad. It sent me into a very dark place. So when I got home, from that camp, I started self harming physically. And then within a couple months, I started drinking
Mm-hmm.
and realized after the very first time that alcohol was like the cure that I had always been looking for. It completely numbed everything all the negative feelings, all the pain and self hatred, everything was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to me at the time, it was like, whoa, this is a cure. Like, this is how I can live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how come you hadn't? So if you were immersed in the chaos of it all when you were at your dad's house, why did you wait till this happened? Like, were you trying to stay away from it? Like, did you see what was happening and you didn't want any part of it, or why did you wait?
Uh, the only reason is because my dad had offered me a glass of champagne. It was New Year's Eve, and I had
Okay.
never drank up until that point. I was 13. I guess I just and then I was so sheltered at the private school, so no one, there was no like parties with alcohol or anything. So I
Mm-hmm.
just whenever my dad drank, he just kept it for himself. But it was New Year's Eve, and he offered me a glass of champagne, and I drank it, and the good feeling came over, and
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, whoa, I don't know what this is. Makes sense why he drinks it all the time because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I took the bottle and I snuck off to my room. I drank the whole thing to myself, and woke up in the morning, and I just remember thinking, I want this feeling every day for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning of um, a very long road.
Yeah. So did you graduate?
I did. I graduated high school. I went to four different high schools.
How come?
Um, well, freshman year, I went to a Catholic all girls school, and I didn't fit in there, and I wasn't happy there. So I convinced my mom and stepdad to let me go to the public school. So sophomore year, I went to the local public school, and I started getting into just a lot of trouble,
Mm-hmm.
getting arrested,
Mm-hmm.
drinking, sneaking out, experimenting with drugs, just a problematic teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so then my junior year of high school, I got sent away to Utah for 14 months to, first it was a wilderness like boot camp kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for 8 weeks. And from there, I was sent to a um, lockdown 12-month residential treatment center for girls. That was for a year, and then when I came home from that, I went to alternative public school, um, and that was with a bunch of kids that got kicked out of the local area public school. So we were kind of all the troubled kids.
Oh boy.
Um,
I bet you that seemed
So
like a good idea to them at the time. Oh, we'll just put all these kids in, but that means that you guys are like all together in one place. Like I'm sure that that's just like a
yeah,
recipe for disaster.
it was a recipe for disaster. I mean, I get the idea behind it. It's a good idea.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, recipe for disaster. But it ended up, even though it was bad in the sense that it was a bunch of like kids that did drugs and partied and just, but the thing is that I felt for the first time that I was with like people that I could relate to,
Hmm.
like I wasn't the odd one out. So ended up kind of being in a way a good thing because I felt like, okay, I kind of found my people, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. But it ended up leading me to I started using heroin and crack and meth my senior year of high school.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and you ended
yeah,
up in a treatment center in Arizona.
yes.
Yeah.
So at 18, I my mom and stepdad sent me to a treatment center in Arizona, and it was beautiful, and I did not want to be there. I was so angry that they had sent me there, and I just didn't understand why. I mean, I understood, but I didn't want to be sober.
Hmm.
And definitely I didn't have enough consequences yet where it made sense to me why I should stop.
Hmm.
So I was really angry that they intervened and like ruined my plans like that. Um,
Yeah.
so I ended up there. I stayed for about 4 weeks and decided I was going to leave. So I packed some clothes that I had, and I left. And I
Mhm.
don't know anything in Arizona. I don't know what I didn't know where I was, but I just walked to the freeway and stuck my thumb out, and um, a truck pulled over and gave me a ride, and I ended up hitchhiking all the way to Houston, Texas
So
from
you
Arizona.
didn't know which way you were going or anything at the time. You're just like, I don't want to be right here. I want to go somewhere else.
Well, I had a mission to get to Houston because I knew someone that lived in Houston that I was in the wilderness program with back when I was 16, and I had kept
Hmm.
in touch with them.
Hmm.
So um, I that was the goal because at least I knew someone in Houston. So
Hmm.
I hitchhiked all the way there. I got there safely,
Hmm.
um, and
How
I
was
stayed in
Houston?
Houston. I lived there for a year.
How was
So
it?
yeah. At first in my mind, I thought like I have all this freedom. I made it work at first. I got a job. I found like a little apartment, and I made it work. But
Hmm.
I was trying to run away from myself, and that never works. And so really it's quickly I mean, I never stopped using it. I was using as soon as I got down there, but in my head I thought as long as I stay away from heroin and crack and meth, if I just dabble with other things, it'll be fine.
Hmm.
um, but I ended up really quickly using those again,
Yeah.
and it got how it goes. It was terrible.
Yeah.
um, Towards the end of a year, I called up my mom and pretty much begged her to help me get home, because I had overdosed a couple times. I was pretty much homeless on the streets of Houston. And at this point, I was 19, and I think I was just scared and didn't want to do it anymore. And it wasn't fun like I thought it
Hmm.
was going to be. So I went back to Michigan, and I went into a detox center,
Hmm.
and I met a guy there who we, after a couple days of being there, got to talking and decided we wanted to leave together, and use together.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's what we did. We left,
Yeah.
and we went basically on the run using, for months. And then I had found out I had overdosed on heroin. And when I woke up in the hospital, uh, my mom was there, and I was like, Mom, what are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor comes in, and he says, we ran some tests, and did you know that you're pregnant? And I looked at my mom, and she looked at me. She looked white as a ghost, and I just, oh my gosh, I'll never forget that. In that moment, though, all I felt was happiness. I was so excited. I was like, no way, like,
Really?
I'm gonna be a mom. And to me, I thought, this is it. This is what I can use to get better, and I'll be an amazing mom. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
How'd that
from
go?
there, yeah. So as much, and I say this when I've talked to people before, addiction is so powerful
Mm-hmm.
because no matter how much you love even your own child, you can love them more than anything in this world, and addiction will still always come first, whether you want it to or not, right? Um, I felt an overwhelming amount of love for this little baby that I didn't even know yet. And yet I still could not stop using. The cravings and the urges and the thoughts, the compulsions were so powerful. So I continued using throughout my pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard for me to share. I get like
Yeah.
nervous about talking about that, and I have a lot of shame and guilt about that. But I do know that there's so many women out there that have gone through that too, and I'm sure, at least I hope it helps if they can hear that.
Yeah.
So I used until I was about 6 months pregnant, and at at that point, something just clicked with me where I was like, this is so unfair to this little girl. Who, I don't care if I die, but she deserves so much better than this. So I started looking into adoption agencies. I went to a specialist and got on Suboxone for the remainder of the pregnancy, and I stayed completely clean off of everything besides taking the Suboxone for the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And then at about 9 months pregnant, I was living in a three-quarter house. And so at this point, I have about 3 months sober. Um, and I still could not find a family to adopt my daughter. And I was freaking out because I'm like, I'm in no place to raise this baby. Like, she deserves so much better. So my mom and stepdad reached out to me and said, hey, we'll adopt her. And I jumped on it because it was so amazing, and it still is. I have such a beautiful relationship with her,
Mm-hmm.
and she knows I'm her birth mom, but she also understands, the adoption as well. It really ended up turning into a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So
So, and then
yeah,
you found recovery. Like you had a 6 year
yeah.
stint there where, so tell us a little bit about that. Like, was it your child that sort of got you on the right path, or did something else happen?
Yeah, I would say the beginning was definitely her.
Mm-hmm.
And then after she was born, even though I wasn't, I would go visit multiple times a week at my mom's house. So in the beginning, it was definitely her that was kind of key, because at the time, I did not care about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I really hated myself, but I wanted to stay clean for her. So that was my biggest motivator in the beginning. And then I just started really, like, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to give it my all and see what happens. So
Mm-hmm.
I started going to meetings. I got a sponsor, started really just hanging out with other people that were in recovery. I worked the steps. And then life started getting amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it it just got better and better. Eventually, I went back to school. I got my own apartment. I had a car. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, all these
How were your
amazing things. I
parents?
had
Like, how was your parents and your family like throughout that period? Like when you were going through that transition, were they there for you right away, or were they sort of standoffish at first, or how did that go?
no, they were very. My mom and stepdad they've always just been there to
Mm-hmm.
let me know, like, hey, like before, like, when you're ready to get sober, we'll be here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they were a huge support. Definitely, I mean, they were never the kind that like gave me money and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
helped out
Well.
in that way, but the emotional support was there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I stayed sober for almost 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I went to nursing school. I became a registered nurse. I worked as a nurse for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in 2017, I had to have a hip surgery. And it was a really extensive surgery. I had to have my pelvis broken in 3 spots and a bunch of hardware put in. So I was on bed rest for months and had to relearn to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, I was prescribed pain meds. And I was so cocky because I thought I have almost 6 years sober. This won't affect me. I'll be fine. Um, and then really, yeah, slowly but surely, one every few hours turned to doubling the dose, tripling the dose, and
What'd your friends
before I
say?
knew
What'd your
it,
sponsors say?
I hid it. I didn't tell anyone that I was doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see in my head, I saw nothing wrong with that. I thought that I'm truly in pain. They won't understand. I need these. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
abusing them. I had every justification you can think of. So
Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone. Kept it all to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the only thing that I started noticing was, well, for one, I started isolating from a lot of friends, and then I started feeling like, why do I even bother going to meetings anymore? And it just started going down this slippery slope, but I didn't see it. And then I started experiencing so much anxiety. It was like I had never experienced anything like that. Just every single day, anxious and depressed. And so then I went to see a psychiatrist, and he put me on Xanax. And I thought, well, I mean, it's from a psychiatrist, so it's fine. So now I'm taking the pain meds and Xanax, and about 9 months after the surgery, I was working as at the hospital, and I just had this decision. I said in my head, I was like, I want to use heroin again. I don't know why. It just happened like that, like so quick. Um, I took a few needles from the med room, put them in my scrub pocket, and then when I clocked out, I just drove straight to the city, and I found it within minutes. Drove back to my apartment, and there wasn't even like any kind of second guessing, or it was like I was on autopilot.
Yeah.
Um, and then I did it. I relapsed just like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and from that point forward, it was almost 3 years before I got clean again.
Yeah. So, and things went downhill quickly for you. Tell us a little bit about like how did your employer like did they catch on or how did that go?
Yeah, yeah. It went downhill very quickly. I I I would tell myself, okay, I'm only going to use when I get off of work, right? And I meant it.
Of
Um,
course.
but then I started using before work too. And then I started bringing it to work and using throughout the day at work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my employer definitely caught on. And I got confronted a couple times and saying, what's going on with you? falling asleep, yeah. Um, what happened is I had gotten arrested. Um, so this is about 2 or 3 months after I had like officially relapsed on, heroin. I had gotten, I had left work. I had gone to pick up, and I had gotten arrested and got a possession. And I was in my scrubs with my name badge.
Oh
And
no.
when they booked me in the jail, they sent a fax with my mugshot and everything to my employer. So then when I woke up in the morning and got in front of the judge and all that, they let me out on bond. And I had a voicemail from the hospital saying, hey, yeah, you can't come back. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
Was there any offer
Um,
of services or anything? Were there like, yeah, we
no,
can help
no,
you
none.
maybe? No, just peace out.
No. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So it was when I lost my job as a nurse, it felt like that was the only bit of anything of myself I had left, right? Like I felt like I had lost my sobriety. I had lost all my friends,
Mhm.
right? Like at least I was still a registered nurse. That meant so much to me. And so to lose that, it was like a nail in a coffin, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
Um, so I kind of really went off the deep end in my head. I'm like, well, fuck it. Like, got nothing else to really lose at this point.
Mhm.
So yeah, I lost my apartment. I couldn't pay my rent anymore. And so I started living out of my car and using heavily every single day, all night. Um, and
Yeah.
it's just such a blur. I was in and out of, I would go to I would get so fed up, and my family was so scared and trying so hard to help me. And so I'd go into a detox or a treatment center, stay there for 2 weeks, get released, and relapse within 24 hours. And this was the same cycle. And then I'd be on the streets for months on end. And it was horrific. Um, it wasn't compared to what I had gone through prior to the 6 years. Like this was a whole new ballgame that I didn't even know existed.
Mhm.
The people that I was with every day, the trap houses, the violence, the just yeah, it is dark, dark
Yeah.
times.
How did you support yourself?
Um, yeah, eventually, when I ran out of money and no one wanted to loan me any money anymore, I started having to turn to sex work in order to get by, and I hated it so much. Um, I would see the area of Detroit I was in, you would see girls on every corner, and so
Mhm.
I kind of would get some pointers, I guess, in the beginning. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, I knew what to do, but how do you collect the money and where do you go? And these girls were most of them just so, I don't know how to explain it, empty about it, like no emotion. And you could tell that they had gone through this for so long, and they're like so desensitized to it. Um, and when I would do it, um, and I started having to do it every day just to get my fixes, I would just cry after. I hated it. I hated myself. I hated what I had become. Um, and
So
and yeah,
no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was just, thinking back to it. It was so the people that I would work with were just. You mean, I don't know. I think about it. They just were so violent and disrespectful. Like I wasn't a person. Like I didn't deserve anything in their eyes. So they treated me however they wanted to, and it was so painful and hard to go through that.
Yeah. So what finally did it for you? Like what was there like a final straw? Was there a pinnacle moment?
Yeah. After, so this has been, at this point, it's almost 3 years of this,
Mm-hmm.
of day in, day out, misery, absolute misery. Um, Finally, July of 2020, so almost 2 years ago, um, I was I was couch hopping, living out of a hotel, and I had been in touch with my now fiance, someone that I had dated previously during my 6 years of recovery. So I
Mm-hmm.
had been in touch with him on and off, and I'm not too sure, I can't remember exactly why, but we were talking, and asked me to come over. I asked him if I could come over there. I think I just really wanted to get off the streets at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone over, and he looked at me and just tears in his eyes. And basically, what he had said is, Cara, like, if you can't do it for yourself, if you can't get clean, for yourself, at least do it for your daughter and for me. And for some reason, that just hit me. And I thought, yeah. So, and this is, we're talking about my 9-year-old daughter, the one that's adopted, but also, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that hit me, and that was and so I decided, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go to treatment, just try one more time. And so I did. I went into treatment, and it was a 28-day program, and that was the turning point.
Perfectly executed.
Thanks.
So, um, so tell us. So you went into treatment. Now, when I went into treatment, I got in there and I didn't want to be there, and then halfway through, I didn't want to leave. Was that the case for you?
um when I got there, it's funny. I had good health insurance, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
like work or through my parents before, I aged out. So I had always gone to these like nice treatment centers.
Mm-hmm.
And now I had no health insurance, right? So I go to a state funded place. And no, it's July, no AC, no microwave, no working stove. I mean, I'm talking like like we slept on these cots with a little fan blowing on us. Like there was nothing nice about this place. But they cared, right? The staff cared, and they took their job seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
at this point, I had been living on the streets, uh, for almost 3 years. So anything besides the streets was a luxury to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy to be there just so I could get, I guess, some food and
A
clean
fan.
myself up, shower, have another chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I decided, you know what? I'm gonna take it seriously. And so I did. I told myself every single day, I don't care how strong the cravings are, I don't care how bad I want to go back. It is not going to be an option for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I made sure that I told myself that every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I completed the 28 days, and then when I got out, I went into a sober living and stayed there. And then, it'll be 2 years next month.
Right
And
on.
yeah.
So when we spoke earlier, you said that you were involved in the program. Um, Now, did you do the steps again more recently here this time around?
I did. When I first got out, I connected with an amazing woman, who could really relate to um, my story, especially with the sex work side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I connected with her, and she sponsored me, and I went through the steps with her again very quickly. As soon as I got out, I made sure that was one of the first things I did.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So tell us
yeah.
now, and I'm always interested to talk a little bit about your about people's experiences with the steps. Now, was there when you got into them and you started taking the program seriously, was there a part of that where the rubber actually really hit the road where you're like, that's the thing, and that pushed you forward? Like, like how long was it when you started the steps to the start where you actually started to feel some relief?
I don't know if it's so much, it was kind of a mixture of time away from like, so time completely clean, and also working the steps, and just putting like sobriety first.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I think I think around the ninth step. And then at this
Mm-hmm.
point, I can't remember exactly how many months I had. Maybe like 5 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
6 months, I think. But I do remember 6 months is when I started kind of feeling like, okay, I can breathe. Like I'm not like consistently all the time craving to use,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So you were craving pretty
Also,
heavy then at the beginning.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I felt like it was suffocating. I mean, it's like I was like, if I don't know how I'm gonna, this better go away. I cannot go on like this.
Yeah. And you and
um,
you you did them in order then too. You actually got to step 9 before you ran out and started saying sorry to everyone?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I had, granted, I had experience with these before because I had done them, gone over them multiple times during my years before. And I had sponsored other girls and taken them through the steps. So I had an understanding of what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's, around the ninth step is when I started kind of feeling like some relief, because at this point it's like I'm not only just saying I'm sorry, which is something I did all the time anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually sober and like able to make a true amends to these people that I care about.
Yeah. Speaking of sponsors, I think we're going to take a minute and hear from tonight's sponsors.
Now that I've left Prairie Sky, I just feel free from my addiction. Treatment saved my life. Prairie Sky Recovery saved my life.
So, tell us now with your experience, when, because surely your thoughts still go sideways, and I'm not talking about necessarily like I want to go get high or whatever. I've got my own experiences when your thoughts go sideways. Tell us some of the things that you do when you feel it coming.
So I still struggle with really bad anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I get really panicky easily, and overwhelmed. And so, when I did get clean this time around, I got a therapist who specializes in trauma and addiction as well. And so that really was a good stepping stone to kind of help me with healing, and just having that person to talk to, that professional outlet that it, was helpful. Um, the big thing that I focus on is I have a 10-month-old baby now, a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
and my 9-year-old daughter, and they need me. And I think about that. I'm like, I can't just go run off and be selfish and numb myself out. Like I have two innocent, precious little girls that depend on me to get up every day and be there. And I am so in love with being a mother. It is by far the biggest blessing I've ever had. So that's really a big thing that keeps me going. And then also, my life today is just so beautiful. I don't ever want. I mean, sometimes it's hard though. I mean, I've had those thoughts where, oh, I thrive in the chaos and I
Mm-hmm.
feel that's where I feel comfortable. But I think about when I was out there in the streets. I would sit on the curb sometimes and just cry because I did not want to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know how to get out and how to
Mm-hmm.
stop. And I just remember that my brain likes to play tricks on me.
Yeah. Do you ever, talking about cravings, do you ever miss the life? Do you ever like miss the chaos in some sort of way?
In some sort of sick way, maybe like that, maybe that I
Yeah.
don't miss using, definitely not the use. I don't even know now if I miss it. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still naturally gravitate to more chaotic situations,
Mm-hmm.
and I think danger excites me.
Mm-hmm.
um, I haven't given it much thought if I actually miss it or not. I guess I try not to entertain those thoughts because I probably could convince myself I do miss it,
Yeah.
if I think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything when looking back now, to all the way back to your teenage years to whatever, do you think that there's anything that your parents could have said, could have done, any family members or friends that may have steered you in a different direction?
No, I don't think there was anything really that, my mom and stepdad, I think they did everything they possibly could to have helped me. They put me into therapy, sent me to treatment centers. They did everything, did the tough love, did the soft love.
Mm-hmm.
They went to Al-Anon. They were they were amazing. I think that I just was born with the addiction genes. I mean, my whole dad's side of the family are addicts or alcoholics. And I think that mixed with the childhood trauma and then the sexual trauma just kind of ignited that. And there was
Mm-hmm.
I was off to the races.
Yeah.
Um, but along the way, I think that what they did was, I love that even when I have this really, this is a intimate memory of my mom, right? I she had picked me up off the streets, taken me to the emergency room to try and get me like detoxed and help, and my body was covered in open sores from picking. I hadn't showered in probably weeks. My hair was matted. I mean, I just looked terrible. I smelled. I um, it was horrible. And my mom took me into the bathroom and washed me up, right, with like soap and paper towel, and sang this little lullaby that she used to sing to me as a little girl to put me to sleep. And she like laid my head on her shoulder and just let me sob and didn't judge me or didn't yell at me, didn't turn me away. She loved me regardless of how bad I was and told me that she believed in me and that she was always going to be there. And she didn't enable me by any means, but she definitely never gave up on me. And that means a lot.
It's beautiful. We have some
Yeah.
comments coming in here. Got one from Shannon. Shannon, thank you for the comment. Shannon says, so proud of you. You are so brave. Thank you for your honesty and sharing the hard stuff. You're inspiring.
Oh, thanks, Shannon.
We've got another one from Cheryl. Cheryl, good to see you. Thank you for the comment. Cheryl says, you are a brave young woman, Cara. You did what you had to do to survive, sweetheart. You are here. You deserve every goodness. Sending so much love.
Gonna make me cry. Thank you.
We've got a wonderful viewership. We've got a question. Claudia, thank you for the question. Claudia asks, did you have your nursing license back?
No, I don't. That was taken, and I could get it back if I there are steps that I can take to get the nursing license back. I just haven't taken them yet. Not sure if I want to either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got one more coming in here from Jennifer. Thank you for the comment, Jennifer. Jennifer says, that is a beautiful story. You are a beautiful young lady. Keep going.
Thank you.
So, you are on TikTok. You are on Instagram. How can people
I am.
find you? How can people follow your journey?
I am so bad about posting on TikTok. I do probably once every like 3 months.
Well, there's some stuff
But
on there.
yeah. I'm trying to get better about it. But Instagram, TikTok is really the good one though, because that's where I share like my addiction and recovery stuff. So yeah,
What is your name on TikTok? It's like Cara Autumn or something, isn't it?
yeah, Cara Autumn. So
If you want to,
Cara.
if you want to go after the broadcast, if you want to go into the comments and just throw it into the comments on Facebook there, I'm sure you'll get a few followers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's a little button down here, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's all that I've got for you this evening, my friend. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
Just that even when I think I always liked this, that if there's still a heartbeat, then there's still hope. I was one of those people where pretty much everyone had lost hope that I would ever survive, get clean again. And don't give up on yourself or the people that you love, because we can recover from this.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, my friend. We will let you go. Take care.
Thank you.
There is power in numbers. If you would like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. Find us on all audio platforms. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that the lie is dead. We can recover. There is a safer way, and we're here to show you how. If you would like to see everything we have to offer, visit www.hardknockstalks.com. Take care, everyone. Good night.